Chapter 8. Joe and the Magic Snowman. Moonface was most upset that Joe disappeared. "I told him not to go. I told him," he groaned. "You didn't," sobbed Franny. "Your mouth was full of toffee, and all you could say was oobla, oobla, oobla. And how could we possibly know what that meant?" "Where's Joe now?" asked Beth, quite pale and with shock. Yes, indeed. Where was Joe? Someone had lifted him right off the ladder into the land of ice and snow. And there, strangely enough, the moon and the sun were in the sky at the same time, one at one side and the other opposite, both shining with pale light. Joe shivered, for it was very cold. He looked up to see what had lifted him off the ladder, and he saw in front of him a big, strange creature, a snowman. He was just like the snowmen Joe had often made in winter-time, round and fat and white, with an old hat stuck on his head and a carrot for a nose. "This is luck," said the snowman, in a soft, snowy sort of voice. "I've been standing by that hole for days, waiting for a seal to come up, and you came." "Oh," said Joe, remembering that seals came up to breathe through holes in the ice. "That wasn't a water hole. That was the hole that led down to the faraway tree. I want to go back, please." "The hole has closed up," said the snowman. Joe looked, and to his great dismay he saw a thick layer of ice that had formed over the hole, so thick that he knew perfectly well that he could never break through it. "Whatever shall I do now?" he said. "Just what I tell you," said the snowman with a grin. "This is splendid. In this dull and silent land there is nothing but polar bears and seals and penguins. I have often wanted someone to talk to." "How did you get here?" asked Joe, wrapping his coat firmly around him because he was bitterly cold. "Ah," said the snowman, "that's a long story. I was made by some children long ago, and they had finished me and then started laughing at me. They threw stones at me to break me up. So that night I crept away up here and made myself king. But what's the good of being king if you've only got bears and things to talk to? What I really need is a good servant that can talk my language. And now you've come." "But I don't want to be your servant," said Joe indignantly. "Nonsense," said the snowman, and he gave Joe a push that nearly sent him over. Then, on big, flat snow feet, he moved forward to where there was a low wall of snow. "Make me a good house," he said. "I don't know how to," said Joe. "Oh, just cut blocks out of this stiff, icy snow and build them one on top of the other," said the snowman. "And when you've finished, I'll give you a warm coat to wear, so then you won't shiver so much." Joe didn't see that he could do anything else but obey, so he picked up the shovel that was lying by the wall and began to cut bricks out of the frozen snow. When he had cut about 20, he stopped and placed them one on top of the other till one side of the round house was made. Then he began to cut snow bricks again, wondering all the time in the world how he would ever be able to escape from this strange land. Joe had often built little snow houses out of soft snow in his garden at home during the winter. Now he had to make a big one with proper snow blocks, as hard as bricks. He quite enjoyed it, though he did wish the girls were there too. When he finished it and made up a nice round roof for the snowman came shuffling up. "Very nice," he said. "Very nice indeed. I think I can just get in." He squeezed his big snowy body inside and threw out a thick coat for Joe, made of wool as soft and as white as all the snow around. Joe put it on very thankfully. Then he tried to squeeze in after the snowman, for he wanted to get out of the cold and icy wind. But he was so squashed between the snowman and the walls of the snow house that he couldn't breathe. "Don't push so," said the snowman disagreeably. "Move up." "I can't," gasped poor Joe. He felt quite certain that he'd be pushed right out of the snow hut through a hole in the wall. Just then came a curious grunt at the doorway. The snowman called out all at once, "Is that you, Furry? Take this boy to your home under the ice. He's a nuisance here. He keeps squashing me." Joe looked up to see who Furry was, and he saw a great white bear looking in. The bear had a stupid but kind look on his face. "Oomph!" said the bear, and pulled Joe into the open air. Joe knew it was no use to struggle. Nobody could get away from a bear as big as that. But the bear was certainly very kindly. "Oomph!" said Joe, with a loud grunting no. "I don't know what you mean." The bear said no more. He just took Joe along with him, carrying the little boy, for Joe had found the way very slippery indeed. They came to a hole that led under the ice and snow. The bear pushed Joe down it, and to Joe's enormous surprise, he found that there was a big room under there, with 5 bears in it, big and little. It was quite warm there too. Joe was astonished, for there was no heater, of course. "Oomph!" said the bears politely. "Oomph!" said Joe. That pleased the bears very much indeed. They came to shake paws with Joe and very solemnly oomphed all over him. "Oomph, oomph, oomph, oomph." Joe liked the look of the bears much more than he liked the look of the snowman. He thought perhaps they might help him to escape this silly land of ice and snow. "Could you please tell me the way back to the faraway tree?" he asked the bears very politely and clearly. The bears looked at one another and then oomphed at Joe. It was quite clear they didn't understand a word that he'd said. "Never mind," said Joe with a sigh, and made up his mind to put up with things till he could find a way to escape. The snowman was a great nuisance. No sooner did Joe settle himself down for a nap, leaning his head against the big warm body of a bear, than there came a call from the snow house. "Hey boy! Hey boy! Come and play dominoes with me." So Joe had to go and play dominoes, and the snowman wouldn't let him come into the house because he was so squashed. Joe had to sit in the doorway and play. He nearly froze to bits. Then another time, as he was eating a nice piece of fried fish that one of the bears had kindly cooked for him, the snowman shouted for him to come and make the window in his house, and Joe had to hurry off and cut a sheet of clear ice to fit into one side of the snow house for a window. That snowman really was a nuisance. "I wish to goodness I never stepped into this silly land," thought Joe 1,000 times. "It's a good thing that the bears are so nice to me. I only wish they could say something else but a woof." Joe wondered what Beth and Franny were doing. Were they very upset that he didn't come back? Would they go home and tell Father and Mother what had happened? Beth and Franny were upset. It had been dreadful to see poor Joe disappear through the cloud like that. Moonface looked very solemn too. He could speak quite well now, as he'd swallowed all his toffee. "We must rescue him," he said, his face shining like the full moon. "How?" asked the girls. "I must think," said Moonface, and he shut his eyes. His head swelled up with all his thinking. He opened his eyes and nodded. "We'll go to Goldilocks and the 3 bears," he said. "Her bears know the land of ice and snow. She might be able to help Joe that way." "But where does Goldilocks live?" asked Beth, in wonder. "I thought she was just a fairy tale." "Good gracious, no," said Moonface. "Come on, we'll have to catch the train." "What train?" said Franny in astonishment. "Oh, wait and see," said Moonface. "Hurry now, go down the slippery slip and wait for me at the bottom.